So, my guest tonight is a man who, in a recent survey, was deemed the most powerful man in Britain after Tony Blair. Yet, if you passed him in the street, you probably wouldn't give him a second glance. He spent half his life being called a geek or a nerd. In the process, he's amassed a personal fortune which makes him the richest man in the world. This guy is worth more than 135 nation-states, including Luxembourg, Ireland and New Zealand. His name? Bill Gates. Log on to the internet and you'll soon find what some people think of Bill Gates. You can punch him. You can explode his head. You can decapitate him. You can even put a pie in his eye. What can this quietly spoken, bespectacled 43-year-old have done to deserve such fury? The answer is that he is the most successful businessman of his generation. Maybe he's the most successful businessman who ever lived. If you or your business owns a computer, there's a 90% chance you've given money to Bill Gates. 9 out of 10 of the world's computers run on software developed and sold by his company, Microsoft. In the process, he has become the world's first $100 billion man. It isn't a rags to riches story. Bill Gates' father was a successful, prosperous lawyer in Seattle. Bill, or William H. Gates III, was the middle child with an elder and a younger sister. A difficult little sod whose parents ended up sending him to a child psychologist because they thought he was underachieving. But his life changed when the local Mothers Club used the proceeds of a jumble sale to buy a primitive computer. By 13, he taught himself computer programming. At Harvard, he came across one of the first microcomputers, not much more than a box with 16 lights and 16 switches. He became obsessed with the belief that soon there'd be a computer on every desk and in every home. He dropped out of Harvard and with his friend Paul Allen formed Microsoft. The rest, as they say, is history. Bill Gates' hunch was that the people who'd make the money weren't the companies that put the computers together, but the people who designed the software which made them work. He was spectacularly right.
We're in your corner. Listen, we can't wait to see what you're going to do. Listen, listen, listen.
But his position as gatekeeper to the internet, which is supposed to be all about freedom, has made him a hate figure for some. And so powerful is his position now that the American government is accusing him in the courts of being a monopolist. The crusader has become part of the forces of darkness. Does it bother him? He has a wife and 2 children and has built himself what he calls the house of the future in his native Seattle at a cost of a mere $40 million. He says he doesn't want to hand on his wealth to his children and has created what will soon be the world's biggest charitable foundation. And in the 3 minutes it's taken me to tell you all that, he's earned another $50,000. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bill Gates. The obvious question to ask you, and the question I suppose everybody would want to know, is what is it like to be the richest man in the world?
Well, I have a fascinating job. I get to work with smart people. It's a very intense job because I'm in a business that's changing all the time. Whether or not I owned the part of Microsoft that today is quite valuable, you know, I think I'd have one of the most fun positions and one that forces me to keep learning new things and tackling new frontiers.
But, you know, you can find out anything about you or all sorts of claims about you on the internet. One of them, which entertained me, was that if you dropped a $10,000 bill, it wasn't worth your time to bend down to pick it up again. Is that true?
No.
Is it true that if you computed how much you were worth, ever since Microsoft was formed, if you'd worked 14 hours a day, you'd have been paid at the rate of $1 million an hour, which is another fact that one can gain from the internet?
Well, certainly Microsoft has had a lot more success than I or anybody ever involved in it expected. We had a vision that we believed in. You know, we enjoyed writing software. We hired our friends who were great at writing software and started with absolutely nothing. And so it is sort of a dream come true.
Has it changed you?
Well, certainly I've grown older. I don't work all night the way that I used to. I work very long hours, but I like to balance that with getting home every night and seeing my family, spend some hours with my kids. And so I'd say I've got a pretty balanced lifestyle. When I'm out working, I get to meet people. Like today, I went and saw the Prime Minister, which is, it's neat to see the leaders in various areas and talk about all the wonderful changes that are going on.
It must also change, though, how people regard you.
Well, certainly the people who count are your close friends, your kids, your wife, your relatives, and those people. A lot of my close friends are the people who worked with me at Microsoft from the very beginning, where we shared dreams, we believed in what we were doing, we took a long-term approach, we did it with incredible integrity, and we're proud of the wealth we've shared with all our employees.
But when you're worth $100 billion, there must come a point at which there's no purpose to be gained in earning anymore.
Well, I don't think at any point in this it was motivated by some level of wealth. My fascination with building software came at a very early age. And we never expected to have a company this valuable, but we wanted to create software that would empower lots of people. And so we thought of ourselves, what would we like to see? Would we like a neat spreadsheet that could do new things? Would we like a word processor that worked in new ways? Would we like graphical user interface? And we still see things like a computer you can handwrite to, or speech recognition, that are on the frontier that we want to tackle it. We want to be the first to do it and do it right, and empower people in some phenomenally new ways.
Well, you come to some of that in a moment or two. To be fair to you, you have decided you're going to give almost all of this wealth away. Why is that?
Well, it's a question, and it's a very personal question for anyone, is passing large sums of wealth on to your children good for them, or the right thing for society? And some people will choose to do that, and in my case, I've decided along with my wife that that's not the way we're going to do it. We're going to take that wealth, which essentially I'm a steward of, and the numbers will depend on how Microsoft does. It could go up, could go down, but whatever it is, that's something that I'm going to try and make sure gets used in a way that's beneficial to everyone.
And you intend to do that through the Bill and Melinda Gates Charitable Foundation. And how do you decide who should be the beneficiaries of your wealth then? Well,
there's two themes that we have for our foundation, and those are health and education. My enthusiasm is about these wonderful advances in health brought on by the new biotechnology and other companies, and these advances in technology, which is the personal computer and the amazing software that goes around it. And what I'd like to have the foundation do is make sure that more people get access to those things sooner on than they would otherwise. For example, vaccines. You can save literally millions of lives a year by taking those vaccines that have been invented, ones that you and I take for granted for our children, and make sure they're available all over the world. And so as I've met the people who are dedicating their lives to causes like that, I've gotten very enthused about the fact that I can help them out and make that a reality.
Do you think it would corrupt your children if they inherited large amounts of money? Is that your fear?
Well, I wouldn't use the word corrupt, but I do think that and if you're going to pick the thing that you're passionate about and find the place you want to work, the fact that people are looking at you according to your wealth can take away from that. And that's a very personal decision. I think it's actually hard to describe how I came to that conclusion, but that's what I've chosen to do.
How much are you going to leave them?
Well, as a percentage, it'll be a very, very
minuscule
small percentage of that. Certainly enough that they never have to worry about their welfare. Enough so that they'll choose to work, but they'll never have to worry that they won't have enough to take care of their health or their family's education.
When people talk about you, they make some astonishing claims. You heard one of them there, that you're said to be the second most powerful man in Britain. Rupert Murdoch, and it's pretty rich coming from Rupert Murdoch, I grant you. Rupert Murdoch says Bill Gates wants to take over the world.
He's hiding behind me. That's terrible. He's your man.
But, I mean, what do you make of claims like that? They're extraordinary.
Not much.
But you are powerful.
Well, I'm in a very lucky position. You know, Microsoft has created some amazing products. They've succeeded beyond our dreams. We have an opportunity to make these products a lot better. We don't actually, it's not like owning a newspaper. I mean, somebody who owns a newspaper can say, you know, I'm going to pick the editor who runs headlines that I like. What we do are create tools like a word processor that let people express their ideas. And we're not at all involved in how they choose to use it.
Sure.
And
Well,
in fact, the thing that we're involved in has democratized communications. You know, anybody can publish out on the internet, and you don't have to own a TV channel, you don't have to own a newspaper. And so the fact that this has been a force for freedom is just one of the many things that makes it great to be involved with.
Right, you're arguing that you're not the newspaper publisher, you're the man who makes the newsprint, effectively.
For everyone who can get a personal computer, they can publish their ideas. And that's been a force for democracy throughout the world.
How have people got it so wrong about you then? I mean, there are all these jokes. My favourite one is that you, Bill Clinton and Al Gore all die on the same day. You go up to heaven and God says to Al Gore, what have you been doing, Al? He says, I've been trying to save the planet. Good, says God. Comes in on my right-hand side. He says to Clinton, what have you been doing? He says, I've been trying to share people's pain. And then he turns to you, and before he can open his mouth, you say, I think you're sitting in my seat. Now, there are all these jokes about you, and it's because the perception is that you are powerful. You are effectively the gatekeeper to the information age.
No, no one is the gatekeeper to the information age. The reason the internet has exploded is because there's such a variety of material out there. You know, if you have a hobby that you care about, if you have an interest, you can go and put that stuff out there. There's no one who could have created that phenomena if it wasn't completely wide open for anybody to create whatever they want. Now, some of the software they've used to actually create those websites comes from us, some comes from other people.
9/10 of it comes from you.
Of the stuff that runs on the client personal computers, yeah, our software is done very, very well.
Sure.
And the fact that people have that as a tool, that's something that, you know, I feel great about. But it's certainly not something that controls how they go about using it.
But what you determine to be the capabilities of that software determines what the shape of the information age is. And in that sense, you are tremendously powerful.
Well, certainly we're working hard to make these advances, like the speech recognition or handwriting recognition, and we can make it easier for people to do things. We can make it easier for people to find things. Now, every time we come up with a new version of our software, it's up to the marketplace. People can keep using the current version. They don't have to pay us a thing if that's what they want to do. So we have to have our innovation be so exciting that they go out and take the trouble to buy the new software, install it, and learn it. And you know, that's a threshold we've got to meet every time.
That's one way of looking at it. What I've heard people say who use a lot of your software is that there are built-in frustrations with it. For example, you know, video or sound. The capacity is so limited that the necessity upon the user is to buy the upgrade as soon as it becomes available, that you're deliberately manufacturing, as it were, built-in obsolescence.
Well, certainly every product we do is absolutely as capable as it can possibly be. You know, there's no holding back. The people at Microsoft come into work every day building the best products they can, and they're very proud. You know, you go into schools and see how kids are using this stuff. Go and ask people about how their jobs have changed because of the personal computer. You know, we're sitting there listening to our customers saying how they'd like to make things better. So we do absolutely our best job, and in fact, that's why we've been successful. You know, anybody who holds back in this business isn't going to be around for long, because this is a business where you always have to be moving at a very rapid pace.
The gut feeling that many people have when they worry about you and about Microsoft is that, in a way, you have become what you set out to oppose, that the information age is, as you say, it's about enfranchising people, it's about free exchange of information, it's a democratic ideal. And that by the way that you operate, you have turned that appetite into a way of feeding this great Microsoft machine.
The information age is exactly what we make it to be. Everybody who puts up a website, everybody who sits down and comes up with how they want to participate in these communities. And there are many companies building software to make that better and easier. Sure. And you have just seen the beginning in terms of how we can empower people. So, the fact that this is going to change the way democracy works. It's going to lead to much more transparent government. It's going to lead to better prices, better ways of educating. We're very proud to be a part of that. The software industry, since we've been involved, has grown by a factor of 100. And we're about 8% of that industry. That it's really the volume of software that we've gotten out there that's helped to create. And it's through those partnerships, making the other companies successful by getting lots of PCs out there. That's what's really made the whole thing come together. And I think it's a little hard to find something that's negative about, what we've done with Windows or what's happened with the PC or what's going on with the internet. The fact is that, we have to constantly make breakthroughs to continue to be successful. And that keeps us on our toes. That's why my job is a fun job.
Well, they would contrast you with someone like Linus Torvald, who has made his software freely available. And they would say, Microsoft, they've made so much money, they don't need to charge anymore for what they produce.
Well, I guess, there could be a view that nothing should be charged for. The way that we're able to do great support of these projects and to do the new R&D, tackle the new frontiers, is partly because we are a business. We pay salaries to people, including the people who do all those support. And there's always been a mix of free software and charge for software. And that's part of the contradiction here is I have to make sure that my software is so valuable that people choose it over free software. And I understand that. That's why you've got to appreciate this is a very, very competitive business.
Isn't the likelihood in the longer term that eventually someone will do to you what you did to IBM?
Well, all companies eventually are replaced. They play a role in the economy. My job is to make sure that as long as I'm CEO, that we still try and stay in business. When I turn it over to someone else, then that'll be his burden. But the role that a company plays is simply to get those products out in the marketplace. And eventually, the environment changes so that, over a period of generations, all companies pass away. Somebody else comes in to do a better job, and so far we've done okay.
But even your own government is accusing you of monopolistic practices.
There's the Department of Justice did file a lawsuit that. Certainly we disagree with, and we're yet to see the outcome of that. We actually look forward to the final resolution of it because the facts that have been presented there, no observer could say that we haven't shown how competitive our business is.
What's it like being sued by your own government?
It's surprising.
Any more than that?
Well, in fact, that's my time is spent sitting down with the software developers, talking about the next thing we're going to do. Take these new mobile phones. What are we going to do with that? Or take the TV. What are we going to build there? The fact that there's a lawsuit there, where somebody's made put forward some notion, for example, that we took the browser and came up with one that won all the reviews. And we noticed that the advertising revenue we could get from the browser meant that we could provide it free to people and still make money on innovating in that browser space. And so we brought a new price, we brought a new level of capability, and because of the internet, anybody else had total open capability to distribute their product and get it out any way that they chose to do. The fact that somebody got confused about that it's disappointing, but it's certainly not something that I spent a lot of time thinking about.
Well, we'll see how the court case turns out. I want to take you back to where your original fascination with this whole world began, and your own family background. Relatively prosperous upbringing in Seattle. You first came across computers aged about, what, 13?
Actually 12.
12. And you could program a computer by the age of 13.
Well, there's different levels of being able to program the computer. I wrote a tic-tac-toe program within a week of seeing the terminal there, but you know, that's a very simple program. It was over a period of 3 or 4 years that I got very serious about looking at, you know, how operating systems have been written, how compilers have been written, reading about software, and really looking at the people who did the best work and comparing my work to that, and you know, trying to be as great a developer as I could be.
But it was a very competitive family environment, wasn't it? I mean, you were bribed, effectively, weren't you, to get A's? 25 cents if you got an A.
Well, 25 cents, let's give me a break.
Not much to a man who's worth 100 billion, I grant you. But that was in the days when you bent down to pick it up, you see.
I don't think 25 cents could be characterized as a bribe. If that's all it took to get a nation to have all students be straight A's, then hey, we can solve the educational ills in a second.
Okay, was it a competitive environment then?
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I was very lucky in that my parents read to us a lot, encouraged us to read. They took us on trips. They discussed the challenges they were facing at the dinner table. So I had a very rich experience. You know, I met a lot of interesting people. My parents did a great job building up my confidence and, you know, letting me do things. I worked in the Capitol as a page in the United States Congress for a period of 5 months. I took my senior year of high school off and took a job as a programmer. So my parents were wonderful at creating an environment that, you know, let me think about all the possibilities, including starting my own company.
Which eventually you did. This fascination with computers had started at the age of 12 or 13. You got to Harvard, and you dropped out of Harvard to found your business.
Well, yeah, in high school, I'd already done a few companies and made you know, some money, thousands of dollars, on various programming projects. Then I went to Harvard. And I'm not sure you should say I dropped out. I was there about 2.5 years when it became clear that the ground floor opportunity to write the software for these computers on a chip, the microprocessor, that if we wanted to be the very first to do that, we were going to have to get out and put our full-time effort into it. And so I went on leave from Harvard, but I've never gone back.
They're still expecting you.
They'd be glad to have me visit.
At what point did you get this famous dream, a computer on every home and in every desk?
Paul Allen and I had talked about that in late 1974, before
so you were still at Harvard
the company.
then?
That's right. That's right.
And yet at that stage, the sort of computer that you were familiar with, did it even have a screen?
No, these were teletypes that would connect up to very, very expensive machines. But the very first computer on a chip came out in 1971, and it had very limited capabilities. And Paul and I were the only ones who went and bought one of these individually, and we wired it up and played around with it and tried to think what it could do. Well, that first one wasn't very good. Yeah, you could hardly do anything with it. And then finally in 1973, they came up with one that was powerful enough that I said to Paul, this one we could do BASIC for. We could actually make it a computer that had quite a bit of power. And so he and I were thinking about that ever since then. And what did that mean? And why were we the only ones who were excited about it? It seemed strange to us, and we just wanted to make it happen. And that's when somebody actually built a kit that included this chip that we said, no, let's go write the software for those guys and make this thing happen.
But you were, given the nature of the beast then, this was an extraordinary vision to have, that it would be in every home and on every desk.
That's right. It was
quite
crazy.
Extraordinary.
That's right. We
Well, what did
were
you think-
careful who we told it to. They'd think we were nuts. We'd say on every desk. You know, some people could sort of understand that, but when we said in every home, we lost them there completely.
But what did you think at that stage that people would be using it for?
Oh, for communicating, for creating documents, for playing games. The actual nature of the use, we wrote down a list of applications we believed in. And if you look at how people use computers today, you know, we got most of it right. We thought they'd do home control, you know, turning their lights on and off, controlling the heating. Turns out, at least so far, nobody wants to do that. So we were wrong about that one. We thought people would keep their recipes on the computer. So far, I don't know many people who do that. But except for a few things that ended up being silly, most of what goes on today are things that we talked about as kids.
What sort of a boss are you?
Well, a lot of what my role in the company is more as a leader than as you'd think of a typical boss. You know, picking what the big bets are going to be, giving people positive feedback on the things that are going on, you know, making sure people are, you know, have a real passion for what they're doing. You know, the typical management things of are you making your numbers or are certain things buttoned up. I've been lucky enough to hire in some incredibly good managers who work as part of our executive team who really bring that to the company. So we have a balance of, you know, the technical vision that I bring and a lot of people with other skills that have been key to our success.
Are you comfortable with the preeminent position you enjoy in this industry and indeed in industries generally? A man who is instantly recognized by name at least, and a figure who sparks immediate feelings either of animosity or of, yeah, good on him, good guy. Are you comfortable with that?
Do I have a choice? Part of the incredible success of the personal computer has meant that Microsoft and many other companies have gotten a lot of visibility. And to the degree that allows us to talk about, you know, how students can use these things or how businesses can use these things, that visibility, I think, is a very good thing. You know, when it means for me personally that I get a lot less privacy than I used to have, I'd say, you know, that's a drawback. And it does disappoint me that there's this distortion of, you know, looking at all the incredible great work that's been done at Microsoft and focusing on me individually as though I did all that work. You know, absolutely not. You know, I built a team of people, and it does feel a bit awkward that people treat it like it's a single person.
What's your favorite Bill Gates joke?
I'm not sure. Well, no one's ever told me.
They
one.
shield you from them. I have words with your staff. They're protecting you too much.
I think some of these jokes, the name is perfectly substitutable, so you can put in anyone's name that you want, including yours, and the joke works just fine.
Well, now you raised the question of your private life, and you're happily married. But before you're happily married, you went in for something called virtual dating. Can you help us with that?
Well, I think people are getting the wrong impression.
Seems harmless to me.
For about 3 years, my girlfriend, an incredible person, Ann Winblad, lived in San Francisco. She had her job down there, and she would come up on weekends. The thing we did that has been given that term is we would go to the same movie on weeknights, and then as we were driving to the movie, we'd talk to each other on the car phone, and then as we were leaving, we'd talk about it, or we'd be reading the same books. And so there's nothing...
This is a very boring, disappointing answer, isn't it?
I'm afraid
I
so.
thought you put helmets on or something. I couldn't imagine.
No. This predates the internet.
Oh, I see. What we call the telephone. Yeah. Well, now I'm not going to ask you very much about I'm not going to ask you anything actually about your children and your private life. I think that's your own affair. But I do want to ask you about the future. You've hinted at one or two things that you think are almost within reach at present about what we'd be able to do with computers. In the short term, we're not very far off merging telephones, televisions, and computers. I mean, that's more or less here, isn't it?
Well, there's prototypes you can see today of getting the internet onto the TV, getting the internet onto the screen phone. And so we're really, in the next few years, that stuff is going to roll out in significant volumes.
And presumably the keyboard will become redundant, will it?
Well, the keyboard won't go away altogether. Even as you get speech recognition, the accuracy and the simplicity of the keyboard for a lot of things will still be there, particularly for the PC where you work close to the screen. Now, when you work with your TV, you probably won't want to use a keyboard. You'll want to use voice commands or remote control. And when you have your phone, the voice control will probably be used. But I wouldn't say the keyboard will go away altogether. It'll just become one of the many ways you can get information into the system.
But you'll sit down and you'll talk to your computer.
That'll be one of the ways that you can create a document or look up information.
Will it answer you back?
Yeah, speech synthesis is actually further along than speech recognition. And in the past, it had such a strange sound that if you listen to it for more than a few minutes, it would drive you crazy. Recently, our research has made that so it sounds a lot better. And so speech synthesis will be part of the system, particularly where you're not near to a screen, when you want to be notified or warned about something. But a lot of the information you'll get will be presented on the screen itself.
So you might say to your computer, I need to pay my electricity bill, and the computer might say you paid it last week. I might talk back to you like that.
Oh, sure.
You fool.
Well, that's one of the things you'll be able to select is the personality. If that's what you wanted to say, that is what it'll say.
Are you serious? I mean,
I'm totally serious. In fact, it turned out prematurely, took this idea of a social interface and put it into one of our software products, a thing we called Microsoft Bob. And it was ahead of its time, but that idea of you customize the computer and it has almost a personality that remembers what you're interested in. That's a very important idea.
But we're never going to get one, are we? When people talk about the power of computers and this Orwellian idea of the computer assuming personality and characteristics of its own, and they say, look, a computer can already beat a human being at chess. All that computer is doing is deploying massive computing power. It's not actually thinking, is it?
That's right. None of the work that's being done on software today holds the potential to create a truly intelligent device. All the things we're doing now are about the computer as a tool. Now, if you talk to futurists, they might say in 10 years' time or 20 years' time, people will begin to tackle what's called artificial intelligence, making a truly smart computer. But all the work today is aimed at simply making the best tool that mankind has ever had.
But there may well be somebody out there who's having the sort of visionary thoughts that you had when you saw a computer in every home and on every desk.
That's true.
And it may well be conceptualizing applications that we simply can't imagine.
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, that's exactly why this field is wide open, is because somebody can come along, a person with a company, they create all their own, go out to a venture capitalist, and you can get infinite amounts of money because the world loves, they've seen the example of Microsoft and many others, and they want to back somebody doing those great new things. And whether it's on the scale of our success or some other scale, you bet there are hundreds of people out there starting companies today that are going to do wonderful things.
You wrote a book called The Way Ahead, didn't you?
The Road Ahead.
The Road Ahead, I'm sorry. The problem that many people have with this world is changing so fast is that they can see no roads in it, or a multiplicity of roads, that we simply don't know where this is going. And once these two things start each to independently proliferate and at some points touch each other, we have no idea where we're going.
Well, nobody can really know exactly where this is all headed, and that's partly the charm of it. As you say, the very pace does intimidate people because they find it a little bit scary, and there are issues that come up. What about people who don't have access to these technologies? Will our privacy be preserved the way that we want it to be preserved? And so lots of issues that, some of them are just for the industry to work out, some that are essentially political issues that the industry's got to go to government and make sure the right framework gets created. There are some challenges in these advances.
And there are already serious problems with with where we are even now. I mean, pornography is the major traffic on the internet, we are told.
It's not the major. There's a lot of traffic there, but I think it'd probably be maybe 10% of what goes on.
Maybe you look at that awful high school shooting, the Columbine High School shooting in Denver. I mean, those kids, mad, had got their own website, proselytizing.
But
race hate can be disseminated terribly easily. I mean, it seems to me there are all sorts of things that we ought to be seriously worried about in this new world.
Well, the internet is a great communications tool, and so every human thought that you like or don't like, people are going to be out there on the internet using it as a way to express those views. And we've had this every time there's a new medium that comes along, the printing press or videotape. It gets used for a variety of things. And there are issues about how do you make it easy for a parent to control, say, what their kid has access to. And we have come up with a lot of software technology that can help with that. And there's a constant dialogue there of, how can the industry make sure that the right kind of controls are in place so that we get the good of what this can provide without some of the ills.
And given that these pornographers are using some of your software to disseminate their wares, you don't feel any sense of responsibility?
No, certainly I want our software to be used for things that are positive and good. And I don't have control over exactly how that's done, but there are things like building into the browser this content control. So a parent can set it up to do two things: to block out pornographic content and to log what the usage is. So they can go back and look at, what has my kid been spending time on? What were they interested in? What should we discuss? And I think that a parent would be wise to pay attention to it.
But you don't think you obviously believe we're over anxious about this.
No. This is a very serious issue. If we decide that we should not let kids use the internet because of this issue, I would say that's over anxious. But putting a lot of time into making sure that the monitoring is right and the rules are there, and if somebody's breaking the law, that that's tracked down. I think we do need to put even more energy into that so that people can see that the great things about the internet, where a kid can pursue his curiosity and discover new things, that we don't have to hold back because most of what's out there is what we want them to have access to.
Thank you very much. I was just thinking, we've been talking for half an hour. You've earned $500,000 in that time. It's astonishing.
I don't know if that's true. I think it's certainly not.
Must be reassuring. Bill Gates, thank you. Good night.